Was that?
It was. I know, I was talking about the questions.
Right, thanks, guys. Good night.
See you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome. Do you wish to make an opening statement?
No, I don't, Senator.
Thank you. Over to you, Senator Sheldon.
Good evening. Good to see you all. I just want to get just a question regarding noise monitors. I'm just wondering, is there intention to install permanent noise monitors in Balmoral, Hawthorn, Northgate and Wavell Heights? This is regarding, obviously, Brisbane Airport.
Senator, I'll bring Mr. Jason Harfield, Chief Executive Officer. Ask Mr. Curran to answer that specifically, if you could, please.
Senator, thank you. Pete Curran, AirServices, Chief Customer Experience and Strategy Officer. At this stage, there's no decision been taken to install new permanent noise monitors. There's a range of temporary noise monitors that are being deployed across Brisbane during the PIR, post-implementation review.
So and the temporary ones are at Balmoral, Hawthorn, Northgate and Wavell Heights, is that?
Senator, there's a number that are deployed, and I believe there's certainly Balmoral is one of them. I'd have to take it on notice to confirm the exact locations, but I believe there's a couple of other locations further away from Brisbane Airport that are being looked at as well.
The Advisory Forum interim report told the government there could be better communication and cooperation between all government agencies with an interest in the AirServices post-implementation review and Brisbane Airport Corporation. What steps have been taken to implement those recommendations?
Senator, there's a range of activities that have been undertaken with regard to that. We are engaging with both CASA, the Department of Infrastructure, to participate in future community engagement sessions. The purpose behind that is to ensure that more fulsome answers can be given at those forums rather than them being taken on notice as such. Additionally, with regard to Brisbane Airport Corporation, we put in place a range of measures to work on a series of trials that we're undertaking as of the 24th of this month. And Brisbane Airport Corporation are working with us in a working group as well as also in a planning and reporting forum basis.
Thank you. Regarding simultaneous opposite direction parallel runway operations, which I'll just call SOD props. With a reference to SOD props trial that the Brisbane Airport post-implementation review advisory forum, and I'll say the forum, recommended in their quarterly report. Can you provide more information on what this trial is and what it will achieve for residents?
Senator, yes, I can. We currently operate a SOD props mode, that's simultaneous opposite direction parallel runway operations. That's a mode that is the least impactful in terms of community noise implications as we operate arrivals and departures over the bay. And so the recommendation from the forum was to extend the hours of the operation of that mode. AirServices has accepted that recommendation, and that trial will commence from February 24, and I believe the hours are 10 p.m. till 8 a.m. On weekends.
And part of the report, can you elaborate on demand not exceeding 45 movements per hour?
I'm not familiar with that specifically, Senator.
I'm going to just come back to that. Regarding the trial, has that commenced?
The trial of the SOD props,
Yep.
which we were just discussing, will commence
Yes.
on the 24th of February.
24th, that's right, speaking of. With reference to the independent specialist advisor position, who will the government be appointing as a specialist advisor, and how were they chosen?
Senator, the specialist advisor is being appointed by myself for AirServices. We are appointing Trax International, or the Trax International were appointed in December. They were appointed for two reasons. The first reason is that I wanted independent advice from the normal management chain from the work that has been done around the post-implementation review. And I've made a commitment to the forum and to the community that their reports will be made public so that they can tell sort of external advice to what is being proposed and whether that's sort of best practice or it could be done another way. Tracks International are a UK firm that have done work at Heathrow, Gatwick. They're actually got 30 clients in 10 different countries, and they specialise in community engagement, flight paths, air traffic management. The other reason that I wanted to bring them aboard is that they haven't been involved in the Australian context or have been involved in Brisbane, so we can get fresh eyes on the post-implementation review to give advice that it's sort of not looking at from the same sort of lens all the time. But they've been appointed by us to give me advice against what we would normally do in our post-implementation review.
Just so I'm clear, how does that, I know you've touched on this, but how does this position interact with the forum? And will it override advice from the forum?
It won't override advice from the forum. The forum will provide input to them and they will engage with the forum. So the advice was that I've asked for an independent advisor that's independent to the normal post-implementation process that we would conduct. And so Tracks International is reporting directly to me, not into the normal management chain. And so their advice and review and remit is to review everything that we are doing and provide a public report on that, which the forum can use and also the community can use.
How long after the advice is provided to the Minister will it be made publicly available?
So the advice won't be made directly to the Minister. When the report is being finalised, we'll be making it public.
I understand that residents are frustrated with inaction from the government. They want to see solutions about what's happening with these issues. How will the government ensure that this position provides solutions for residents?
I can't comment on that. That would have to be to the department, but this position or the independent advisor, as I've said, is providing advice to me independently of the work that AirServices would normally do at the post-implementation review to provide me and broader people, by making the report public, assurance that what we are producing is best practice and has considered all the range of options, hasn't just been something out of convenience for us.
I just want to go to the question of intersection departures. Has the 12-month trial to remove intersection departures commenced?
No, Senator, it will commence also on the 24th of February. And it's not an intersection departures, it's making sure that the aircraft use full length of the runway on departure.
I note in the quality progress, thank you. I note in the quality progress report it says that this trial will look at whether the operational impact of the airport outweighs the community benefit. Community members have been calling for this kind of assessment for several years now. What method will the government use to make that this assessment?
Senator, that's a question for the department.
Are you able to tell me how will the threshold of operational success versus community benefits be determined?
Not at this stage, other than the work that AirServices is doing, that I have committed to utilising the targets that were specified in the environment impact statement as being the gauge to what we're working to any changes or any outcomes of the post-implementation review to work towards.
What methodology or methods will be used for that process?
Mr. Curran, can you answer that one?
Senator, with regards to the community experience, we'll be engaging throughout the 12-month trial with community members through various forums to seek feedback, to understand what the experience is. We'll also be using our noise monitoring system to be able to record data and to be able to provide that data back to communities to inform their decision making and their views. And of course, we'll be engaging with the industry to understand what sort of delay threshold they're experiencing so that we can fully understand the implications of the trial.
So I just want to go a bit further to the noise abatement procedure. The forum recommended the introduction of a noise abatement procedure requiring jet aircraft to remain on the standard instrument departure path until they reach 10 to 12,000 feet. Where is this currently at?
Senator, is that we're currently doing noise modelling as well as reviewing why the aircraft are being taken off the standard instrument departure currently before the 10,000 feet. We expect that to be completed by the end of February, and our aim is to have the noise abatement procedure introduced by the end of March, subject to appropriate consultation as required.
Thank you. AirServices and Brisbane Airport Corporation have expressed their support for the forum's recommendations to implement this new noise abatement procedure. I note that this procedure would ensure that jet aircraft use the departure flight path corridors, which have been published and provided to the public prior to the runway opening. Can you explain me why the noise abatement procedure is implemented when the runway opened? Why wasn't the noise abatement procedure implemented when the runway opened?
Senator, if I understand the question relating to the previous question, which relates to jets to be continuing on the standard instrument departure until they're through 10,000 feet, there are instances where, for air traffic management purposes, to do with traffic flows, other aircraft in the vicinity, that those standard instrument departures are being terminated and the aircraft are being given track shortening or vectored for different reasons. What we want to understand as a part of the review that Mr. Highfield just referred to before implementation in March is the potential for there to be a change in noise patterns given what's currently happening versus keeping aircraft on that standard instrument departure. In simple terms, it could be that one community gets noise moved from it to another community, and so we want to understand that and understand if any consultation is necessary as a part of that. So I don't think it's a case that it wasn't implemented, it's that it's being used operationally in a different way to perhaps how it was expected to be used prior to operations taking effect in June 2020.
I just want to turn to the task resources analysis methodology used to establish the minimum staffing levels required to deliver an effective airport rescue and firefighting service. Is the task resource analysis process underway?
It is underway, Senator.
And how many locations has the TRA been completed?
Senator, I have to actually take that specifically on notice because the way that it is conducted, it starts looking at what we would call Category 5, which is sort of the lower one, and then Category 6, which is up the stations. So I'm just not sure how many stations in total have been done. Our aim is to have that completed and gone through all the work and had the outcomes of that work independently assessed as well and completed by September of this year.
But where there are, and thank you for taking on notice,
Yep.
where it cuts across different places, different locations. Were there any shortcomings or operational capability risks identified during the TRA assessment process so far?
There would be, Senator, however, where there is a risk that's identified that needs immediate addressing, we would do so. And if there are sort of indicators of in assessments of workload, etc., it's getting all the TRA as just one piece of information to other pieces of information that need to come together to give the whole picture. So if something came out through the process that would identify a risk or something that would need to be addressed immediately, it would be done so. Otherwise, it's put into the sort of the mix of the overall picture.
So if it's an extreme risk then identified, so is there any locations that have an extreme risk?
Not to my knowledge, Senator, but I will confirm with that, and if there is, what we have done about it.
Right, that includes high risk, extreme risk.
Correct,
Yep.
Yep.
What does it mean to be assessed as having an extreme risk in practical terms?
Senator, I'd have to take that definition on notice, in the sense that my view is if it's aligned with our normal risk matrix, it is a risk that would need to be treated immediately.
Is one of those risks mean that if you don't have enough staff to deal with accidents, an extreme risk means that they need more staff?
Senator, without the context of what that could be, I'd be reluctant to say yes or even no to that particular question, because it depends on what the risk assessed is and whether that risk could actually be mitigated or addressed another way. Not every risk that you have is actually necessarily due to a staffing level, and having more staff would actually resolve it. So without the context of the actual risk, I'm just reluctant to give you a yes or no answer.
Yeah, but I appreciate that you're saying to me that staffing could be one of those risks.
Always could be.
Just so I'm clear, what's the processes that you follow when it's? I appreciate using the terminology extreme risk or high risk, but what's the processes to assess that risk, and what drives you to say, well, we've just been identified this risk in this report, I need to act? So
Senator, in normal hazard identification process, and I will take it on notice to provide the piece on how we would assess the risk within the task resource analysis, so just in case this isn't correct to normal, is that you would identify what the potential hazard would be, then the likelihood or the consequence of that particular hazard being realised, and then that would determine the level of what I would call inherent risk that's there. Then you would look at what controls or mitigators that you would put in place, and then you would reassess to see whether that risk was lower. And the way our safety management system works is that we try to bring that down to as low as reasonably practicable.
So just dealing with the issue of high risk, well, it was escalating risk, and would it be important that the RFFS team actually knows what level of risk they are working with at the current staffing levels?
Correct, Senator, but that would be a normal part of a task resource analysis. Will not necessarily do that because it's looking at all tasks, when that is something that should be assessed on a day-to-day basis in everything that they are doing.
So, just so
every day that you'll be sitting there going, these are the staffing levels, this is the workload, this is the activity that's going on, have I got the right amount of staff, are the risks, normal work health and safety as well as normal operational safety, that would be a normal day-to-day event. I would find it highly unlikely that people are working and not understanding the risks that they are dealing with, and if that's the case, then there's a supervision and a management issue associated with that.
Can I just make an observation? When organisations or individuals are under stress on how they perform, and there's a lot of different dynamics going on, having a clearer pathway of finding a solution is important. And is there a formula that you have for what, and I'm saying this in a very broad sense, is there a formula you have which applies to what the staffing levels need to be, or is it left to the person that's in charge of the operations at the particular location to make those decisions, or do they have a guide which they use? So, one person might say, and I'm just using a very ridiculous figure, one person might say that 10 people are okay, but another person might say 20 is appropriate. So how's that, the answer might be 16, but how do you work out who's right, who's wrong in those processes?
So we have a staffing model today, which is overseen by CASA, which is associated with the various categories that we operate at the airfield. So I'll take a Category 9, or sorry, just a Category 7 station. It will have a certain amount. That requires a certain amount of agent or foam, etc., to be able to be turned out to an aircraft accident, which then will determine how many vehicles that we have, and then you work out how many staff. And we've actually got a formula as well as staffing levels and how many officers to staff based around the workload, normal day at the various stations, which is oversighted by CASA. What we are now doing with the task resource analysis is updating that to understand whether at those various category levels is the right amount of staffing, depending on what our activities or procedures associated with using breathing apparatus, or in turning out to a particular where we may have a domestic response as well, and working through all of those things and reassessing. So we do have a set sort of formula, so it's not up to the individuals to decide. However, there is nothing preventing a fire station commander, for a better term, determining on the day, or even in an air traffic control environment, if they require, because of situation, they need staff, they've got the ability to call in more staff associated with it.
Just on the TRAs, how many TRAs haven't been shared with you if you or the on-site RFFS crew?
Senator, I have to take that on notice if there is any.
Are you aware whether there's been some TRAs withheld from the TRAs, from RFFS crews and from the United Firefighters Union on the basis that they are in commercial in confidence or intellectual property?
No, I'm not aware, Senator.
Could you take that on notice?
Yes, please.
Are any of the TRAs that haven't been disclosed at locations, and I'll take this on notice as well, locations that have been assessed as being high or extreme risk? If so, can you tell me what high or extreme risk airports have had their TRAs withheld?
I'll take that on notice, Senator, if that's the case.
Rescue and firefighting services operations is obviously a serious business. Obviously, as we know, people's lives are on the line. Would it concern you that the TRAs aren't sharing this information? There isn't being a sharing of information of the TRAs and it's being withheld, if that's the case?
Senator, I would be surprised if the information is being withheld, but as I said, I'll take that on notice to look at it, because I don't see why it would be withheld. I can't see a valid reason.
You see, if there's an aircraft crash or incident tomorrow at an airport you've identified as high or extreme risk, would the firefighting team on site have the capacity to adequately deal with that risk, safety and efficiently?
Senator, yes they would, because I'm unaware of anywhere that's got an extreme or high risk from what is currently being done as the task resource analysis, which is a theoretical exercise to determine tasks, resource and adding up, and there is a number of inputs that are required to actually determine what the right staffing level is. It's just not the TRA by itself. However, at the moment, we have got adequate staffing levels for all of our fire stations and activity going on. So there's a split between, which I'm trying to distinguish between a high risk that has been identified through a process that is still ongoing. And as I said, if there is a risk that is a threat to operations, it would be dealt with straight away and going on, versus the risks associated with current staffing levels and the activity and aerodrome, if you understand the distinction I'm trying to make. Because the task resource analysis is a process that's going on and has a range of inputs, something in there that might be defined as risk. If it is a risk that we have declared that as being part of current operations, then that would be mitigated. It would not be allowed to stand.
Can you provide copies on notice of the TRAs that have been undertaken?
Senator, yes I can.
Thank you. Just a final question, because I think it's probably appropriate, because we often ask questions about this.
Don't tease us with the final.
Yeah, it's the final question. It's a straightforward one. On the issue of update on measures that AirServices have recently undertaken to combat bullying and harassment, and of course this has been an issue that has been around for some time, so I'm wondering what the trainings that have happened for, including yourselves, recent times, and what's the trainings of senior management and staff?
So you said what training have we done, Senator?
Yeah, what training and reinforcement of appropriate policies?
Senator, there's not only is there an annual refresher for all leaders on our code of conduct and staff and what constitutes bullying and harassment, but there was an entire program that came out of the review that we did, a range of actions that goes through from leadership all the way through the organisation, as well as like reporting, monitoring, and setting up something like safe place, an adequate place for people to be able to safely report. After the first year, we republished a new set of actions, and that we do have them on our website, and I can provide them on notice on the
But they're publicly available.
They're all publicly available, and we publish them to show what we are doing. For the executive members and myself, we did things like the leadership shadow to understand our impact through the organisation and what we do, understanding that culture starts at the top and all the way through, and then also doing things such as storytelling, where we get to sit down and listen to people's being and learn, not learn, but take on their issues and understanding what the impact is on people there, and that's something that helps us be better leaders and drive the right culture in the organisation. And our leaders, all the way through, are assessed against our leadership standard. And our leadership standard isn't about what technical you know, it's about know me, value me, focus me. So in other words, know the people that you lead, focus the people you lead on the right thing, and also value them. And we assess our leaders on that, and that's actually the prerequisite to being a leader.
Just appreciate all those things that function within the operations. Just when was the last time that is there a training of the staff? I appreciate there's ongoing assessment of your work that you're doing, as you put to me. Is there a training sessions, like formal training sessions as well, that complement?
There are, and all the way through, and we also do refresher, and we keep building on that as well. Off the top of my head, I can't call some of the training that we've done, because that's there, but we have got all those available on our website and our report against what we're doing for the review of culture, but I can provide some more information if required.
Thank you.
Chair. Well, thank you very much, Senator Sheldon, and thank you very much to AirServices for being the last witness for the day.